right? So All right, so we'll be live on cable too as well. So you look around, we have our cameras there, and just wave. We're all live. Okay. Before I move forward, Kevin, if it's okay, if I give you the floor to kind of give us a background on the Junior State of America's Institute in Micronesia, uh, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Afade Tirawami, and good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, Madam President, honorable members. Thank you very, very, very much for taking the time this afternoon to meet some of the most exemplary students within our region. Um, as you know, for the record, my name is Kevin Bautista. I'm the executive director for the Office of the President at Northern Marianas College. But in my current capacity as the host institution, we are the host institution for the Junior Statesmen of America, or the Junior State of America. Um, I know this program is very familiar with a lot of individuals in this room, our elected officials and our family members. This is founded in 1934. The Junior State of America is the oldest nonpartisan political engagement organization in the country, dedicated to promoting civic engagement and democracy within our high school students and giving them the opportunity to experience college level coursework um, at an institution. Some of the institutions that have been part of this program include Stanford University, Princeton University, Georgetown University, Northwestern University, and just last year, Northern Marianas JSA decided to create a new program, a new summer program in the Pacific called Civics Institute Micronesia. And uh, last year, Northern Marianas College was grateful um, to receive the distinction of being the first institution in the Pacific to um, to be the host institution for this program. So before you, Mr. Speaker, Madam President, and honorable members, we have 10 exemplary students from all over Micronesia that are here to learn a lot about the three branches of government and engage in an NMC course taught by our very own Thomas Manglonia, who is our adjunct instructor. He's teaching a course on media and democracy. So what's great about this um, is that the students are both immersed in the classroom on a media and democracy front, but they're also getting an opportunity to experience firsthand interacting with elected officials. And just in full disclosure, they were at the scene of my judiciary. They met with Chief Justice Alexandro Castro, Associate Justice John Manglonia, and Judge Wesley Bogdan from the Superior Court, and Justice from the Supremes. And then just yesterday, they had a very, very nice in-depth conversation with our honorable governor Arnold I. Palacios, a 10 on essentially a 10-on-1 meeting directly with the governor, and they asked some very, very good questions. So I know that Thomas and our JSA staff have prepared them accordingly for this engagement. And Mr. Speaker, Madam President, if I may, I want to just introduce quickly our counterparts from JSA. To my right is our JSA Civics Institute Micronesia Program Director, Ms. Laurel Fisher. She hails from New Orleans, Louisiana. Um, and I also want to recognize our residential advisors who are current NMC students. We have Justin Agutu right here, and I think he's most likely related to some of you in this room, Mr. Speaker, Madam President, and members. Do we have Christina? It was just Justin today, but we also just to mention them, we also have Patsy Atalik, another NMC student, and Christine De Leon Guerrero. So three recommended NMC students who exemplify what we're trying to do as the host institution. I know I'm rambling a little bit, but thank you very much for the opportunity to kind of give a little bit overview about this program. And I know these students are ready to ask questions when given the opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Kevin, and Ms. Fisher. Thank you. Welcome to the CNMI. So before we move forward, just a little housekeeping on how the mic works. I know it's probably very self-explanatory, but we get people mixing it up. So when you want to ask a question, just go ahead and raise your hand, and I'll recognize you. And when you're ready to talk, just press the talk button once, and you see that the light's on. And when you're done talking, just press it, and it's off. Okay, we got that. All right. So before we move forward, I'd like to go ahead and introduce myself. I am the Speaker of the House, Edmund Villagomez. And of course, to my right is the Madam President of the Senate, Edith De Leon Guerrero. Um, I'm sure some of your members might try their best, yeah, make it. So present today are members of the House. To my left over here, we have Representative Diego Vincent Camacho. He represents the Precinct 1, and he chairs the Committee on Cannabis. And to his left is Representative Vincent Aldan, who's also from the same precinct, who chairs the Public Utilities and Transportation and Communications Committee. Um, Straight ahead from me is Representative Roman Beneventi. And to his left is Representative Manny Castro from Precinct 2. He chairs the Committee on Education. And to his left is Representative John Paul Sablan, who is the chairman of our Saipan and Northern Ireland Legislative Delegation. And to his left is Representative Blas Jonathan Attal. To his left is Representative Vicente Camacho, who chairs the Committee on Federal and Foreign Affairs. And back there in the gallery, first and foremost, Representative Joel Camacho, who is the Vice Speaker of the House. And then we have Representative Ralph Yumo, who chairs the Committee on Ways and Means. And we have Representative Thomas Manglonia, known as TJ as well, from Precinct 5. So those are the members that are present today. And once again, welcome. I can go ahead and talk about what we do in the House, but just like Kevin mentioned, I like it when we start rolling with the questions so we can get into further detail and just open up the floor. The members too that are here are also present to answer your questions, as well as the Senate President. So once again, welcome, Senate President. Would you like to say a few words? Okay. All right. So do we have anybody that wants to take the first shot at questions? Okay, ma'am, right here.
Hello, my name
Hello.
is Karen Simmons. I'm a pre-senior
Mhm,
at Our Lady of Mercy Catholic High School, and I'm from Bombay.
mhm.
So I just want to ask about this issue because it's common on our home island, on my home island.
Mhm.
My home island is facing a lot of issues, but one that I just want to address is inflation. Since our economy is underdeveloped, many people are facing financial issues.
Mhm.
So, what do you suggest we can do to solve this matter?
Thank you, thank you. We are facing also the challenges, the issues regarding inflation. Um, I know we've been very fortunate to receive assistance from the our federal partners. I'm sure you heard of the American Rescue Plan Act, among other federal grants. What are we trying to do in terms of you know tackling this issue of inflation? Colleagues, any of you wanna chime in? Representative Manny.
So one of the biggest challenges we have is most of our goods come in via ship, and right now there's two companies, mainly Matson and American President Lines. Um, so what I know the administration has been working on and with partners in the legislature is to make sure there's like fair competition because business needs that. Um, I'm sure a lot of you probably know the history with the CNMI. Prior to becoming the CNMI, we were the trust territory of the Pacific Islands, and Congress of Micronesia was here on Saipan as the capital. A lot of the benefits back then is we shared a lot of resources, even like the airlines, Air Micronesia, Continental Air Micronesia. We controlled that. Um, some of the challenges we see nowadays is there's more foreign foreign control over business enterprises. So we really have to look at reshifting and investing more in our people and supporting a healthy business community. At the same time, teaching our people to be more entrepreneurial, making sure our government processes are friendly to business, and at the same time looking at food security. So making sure like you can help your economy by reducing the number of imports before you even talk about export. Reducing your imports. So, for example, here we're importing things like lettuce, which we can grow. Meat, we're importing meat, which we can raise cattle here. I know that in Micronesia, there's islands that are doing things like I know in the Marshalls they have biodiesel with the coconut oil. In Pohnpei, there's soap. But the more we can reduce our imports and dependence on um, on importing items, the better our economy will be. At the same time, it will also ensure financial security for our people. So in addition to reducing the imports, also working on exporting. So the more we can export, the better the GDP, the better the taxes, the better the income. It's all a cycle. So government is a big ship with a small rudder, and it takes time to really fix a lot of the problems. But we've done it before. Our founding fathers have done it, whether in the Commonwealth or in the Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands. It's been done before. We can compete at a global scale. It's just a matter of making sure that we make the economy business friendly. Sorry, that's a long speech, but
Thank you. And also to add to Representative Manny Castro's discussion, on our end, we try to also look into legislation to where we provide some kind of incentives to businesses and for those that want to also start up businesses to, hopefully drive down the costs to do business, and hopefully that reflects to the products or the services that they're going to sell. But like he said, one thing about being in the islands in the middle of nowhere, we're dependent on imports. So there are a lot of external factors that we have no control over. If the price of fuel goes up, that's usually like a indicator of you can pretty much expect things to start going up because shipping will go up. The labor for that shipping will go up, so that will also make everything go up to take care of those costs. Representative Vincent Ora.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and welcome. Right. Have you guys ever heard the term "there's no such thing as free lunch"? Okay. Now, when you talk about inflation, okay, this is you really have to dig into macroeconomics and microeconomics. You have to understand how money works and how the bank works. So the whole world economy, when COVID hit, it's a worldwide pandemic. They shut down businesses, schools, everything practically shut down. So what did the world government did and the world banks did was that they printed a lot of money. Okay? They printed a lot of money so that people can sustain their living as best they could with the little money that they get. But because of that, there was a lot of money that was pumped into the system, into the banking system, the economic system. Okay? Now, I'll give you a perfect example. Imagine this is $1. Okay? In pre-COVID times, okay, this is how much your dollar's worth. Okay? This much. After COVID, this is how much your dollar's worth. So there's so much money out there, cash-wise, but there are no new services, provided, same old service. There's no new products that has been invented or sold. It's the same thing pre-COVID time. Okay. But because there's so much money out there that the Federal Reserve and all the reserve banks in the world is trying to calm the market from overflowing of bills, currencies, money. So they try to rein it in. So they raise the interest rates up, which costs more money for anybody to borrow money from the bank. And then people and businesses don't want to borrow money because it's more expensive because there's a lot, the interest rates got higher, right? And so we end up with a recession and the price of everything goes up, but your dollar and your yen, your euro, it doesn't matter what currency you got, it's worth less because there's more of it out there. So if you want to tackle inflation, that's a worldwide economic issue and it's a worldwide government issue. So trying to understand that, it's like you need maybe a decade to really understand it. And economists cannot even control it because everybody in the world operates differently. Every single one of you guys and us, we shop differently. We have different needs and it costs different amount. So if you guys want to understand this is like your whole career. You could go to school for 15 years, it doesn't matter. It's hard to control and you just have to try your best. So you reduce your spending, right? And you just try to live within your means, and pray for the best or prepare for the worst.
Thank you, Representative Aldan. Before we move forward, I'd like to recognize the presence of our two female representatives. First, from the island of Rhoda, Representative Julie Ogo, and I almost said from the island of Chalan Laulau. Sorry, from Precinct 3, Representative Danita Yanktima. Yep. Okay, really good questions. Do you have any follow up, or did that help? You want to share with what's going on, at least that you know of in Pohnpei, what they're trying to do, or?
Okay, so I don't know if the government has taken any action, but whenever I go to stores, there's like there are products that have are hard to afford.
Mhm.
In the past, it was easy to get it, but now it's more difficult to attain that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and speaking of the pandemic, not too long ago, we got hit from Typhoon Yutu, and for me, this is when a lot of things actually went up. Folks that had semi-concrete garages or attached to their house that they were able to build back then with less than $20,000 after the typhoon. It almost cost as much as the whole house just to even repair, and that's just repair. So since then, things have kind of gone up. I've spoken to folks that do, carpentry and all that stuff, building, and they said they've witnessed materials go up in a span of 2 to 3 months when it comes to buying supplies. So, yep, good questions. Anybody else? Go ahead, ma'am.
So recently, I heard something. The governor and the lieutenant governor, they're having conflicts over regarding the appointments. So what do you think about this? Is it newsworthy?
I think it is newsworthy, because as elected officials we report to the people, right? And that's one of the outlets where we can report to the people. Um, when the governor or the lieutenant governor nominates someone to a board or a commission, it usually goes to the Senate side. There are certain boards or commissions where both the House and the Senate have to confirm or go through the process of holding meetings and hearings to hear about their qualifications and backgrounds and their plans for if they get confirmed. So On the first step, whether we agree or disagree, that's when it comes to our court. That's when we decide whether we agree or disagree. So we're not going to stop him from nominating who he's going to nominate in the beginning, but when it comes to uh, to our court or in this house or the Senate chamber, uh, that's where um, that's where we get into the details. Um, but yeah, I think what we do is newsworthy because, like I said, we report to the people. Colleagues, anybody want to disagree with me? Okay. Oh.
Actually, that's a very good question, and we all come from the islands, right? And it's really no different from any other government where um, the head of the state would make appointments to head their departments that they desire for to head. But there's a separation of branch of governments, and obviously the legislature they get to vet out the nominees of the governor, or be that in your island, maybe the president, right? That makes nominations for people. So we also do have statutes that we have to look into to make sure that the people that are being nominated are qualified for the position and that they're also fitting pursuant to the statute. So there has to be some due diligence at the committee level, whether it's in the Senate or the local delegation level. Like I myself, I chair a local delegation committee, which some of the nominees have to pass through my committee, and so myself and the members would have to vet out the nominee to make sure that they are compliant with the statute and that they are fitting to hold the position. And then we do a hearing. We get public comments, and then we make a decision at the committee level whether to recommend for confirmation by the whole body of the delegation or the Senate, and then that person gets to hold down the position as nominated by the governor or the president, or for that matter.
Thank you, Madam President. Okay, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Um, Hi, my name is Sissy. I'm from Chuk. I'm a upcoming senior at Xavier High School. I know you mentioned earlier that you would introduce to us what this house does, but I believe some of us can come up with more questions after
Yes.
finding out. So I would like to ask what a representative or what this house does.
Okay, what we do is we do a lot actually. I'll just go ahead and break it down. In the house we have 20 members. Um, Depending on the size or the population of the precinct, that's how it's all broken down. So in precinct 1, which is mostly the south side of the island, like where the airport is and all that, and the surrounding areas, there are 6 representatives. And then as you move north, like Chalancanoa, Asperdido, Aslito, where the cathedral is, the main church, there are 2 representatives in precinct 2. And then in precinct 3, which is the central area, Garapan, across the street from here, the highest peak. And I'm sure you guys have seen the sports complex, the gym where the track and field is. So from there all the way up to here and pretty much a little further south, and everything in between is precinct 3, and we have 6 representatives. And then as you move north and the northern islands, it's precinct 4, there are 2 representatives. And then precinct 5, which is the east side of the island and a little further south, there are 2, precinct 5, and then 1 from Tinian and 1 from Rhoda. So here in the house, we pretty much do everything just like the Senate. We work on bills. The main difference is just like our counterparts in the U.S. We have the advantage of working on bills that are revenue generating or budgeting and appropriations, and pretty much things that have to do with financing and money has to start here from the House. So right now we are currently working on the budget process. We are doing hearings. We are preparing that budget bill, and it starts here, and then we act on it, and then it goes up to the Senate. I like to say to our students and visitors that as representatives, the office is not just limited to here. Even though we are representatives elected from different precincts, we do represent the CNMI as a whole. So if we're up here working on bills, having committee meetings, getting the legislative process going. But also we attend to our constituents, whether they call about issues with their roads or other infrastructure such as power and water. We try to our best to tackle those issues. We also have what I sometimes call a sub legislature. I mentioned earlier we have the chairman, Representative John Paul Sablon, who chairs the Saipan and Northern Ireland Legislative Delegation. So in that delegation, it's just representatives and senators from the third senatorial district, which is Saipan, and the Northern Islands that sit in that delegation, and we tackle issues uh, that directly affect Saipan and the Northern Islands. So yeah, that's just to keep it in general. We are working on different legislations, of course, that tackle the social economic issues, utilities, and revenue generating and the economy as well. All right. So you said after that you have more questions, right? No? Oh, okay, go ahead. Oh, okay. Okay. How about over here? Yes, sir.
Um, Good afternoon, everyone. My name is JV Ratalmai. I'm from the beautiful islands of Yap,
Right.
and I attend Xavier High School. I'm an upcoming junior, and the question I have for you guys is, do you guys have any advice for the children in Micronesia or anywhere in the world who would want to be future leader?
Okay. Thank you. Very good question. And before I answer that question, or my colleagues, I just want to recognize Representative Yang Tamai. She went to Yap one day and met a beautiful, handsome man and ended up marrying him. Right, Representative Yang Tamai? Yeah. Please check out her store in Middle Road. Yeah. Yeah. All right. The advice I would give, and or colleagues, anybody want to chime in? Um, I don't want to hog the mic too much, so okay. Representative Attal, I'll let him know.
Thank you for that question and welcome to the cinema to each and every one of you guys. First, I think if you want to pursue your education, you should pursue your education. If you want to go into service, you should pursue that. If you want to get into the workforce, then pursue that. But it's got to be something that you want to do first. Everything else will fall into place. I never expected to be in this seat by any means. I never dreamt about it. But it's also a calling, right? You guys are right now. You're going to school away from your home. Right? That's already a challenge. You're away from family, and your education is your utmost importance for you and for your family. So you're already facing an obstacle in life that I think not many kids your age, especially from the cinema, are at this point in their life. You're going to be a junior in high school. So you're 15, 16 years old.
I'm 15 years
You're
old.
15 years old. You're 15 years old and you're away from home. And the goal in life is to get your education at Xavier, a very prominent school, not just in Micronesia. It's well known, even in the U.S. They know Xavier. They know a lot of these kids that come out of Xavier excel in their educational aspirations wherever and whatever university that they attend in the mainland or even in Hawaii and in Guam. One of our very good colleagues that had passed away is an Xavier graduate. He's from Chuk, and he brought a lot of stuff into the cinema. He brought a lot of ideas because he was born in the cinema but grew up in one of the outer islands in Chuk. So he learned the traits of hard living, and with hard living, he pursued education at Xavier, and all the stuff that he learned from Xavier he extended to the university that he chose to attend to, and came back. Probably never expected to be running for office, but he worked for the state government in the FSM. He ended up moving back to the CNMI, worked at the Department of Commerce, ended up at the governor's office, then ran for office. No, even he never expected that he would be in these seats, but before you get to this point, you should do what you want to do. Explore life, learn from your mistakes, and those mistakes are going to help you grow. And maybe visiting new places might present new ideas to be able to bring back home to better your home. But at the end of the day, it should be what you want to do, and let your dreams just be open minded when you go out there and learn as much. Be a sponge, soak everything up, and when you return, then you can deliver back to your people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Atto. Representative Manny.
So in line with what Rep Atal mentioned, um, there's going to be a lot of barriers on the way, but there's also a lot of resources to help you get there. So for example, if you're from YAP, you can apply for the YAP State Scholarship. You can apply for the FSM National Scholarship. You can apply for FAFSA. Whatever institution you go to, if you decide to go the college route, um, you can apply for scholarships there as well. So there's tons of resources, especially for students within Micronesia. I know RMI also has the RMI National Scholarship, which pays a lot more than the CNMI scholarship does. So your governments are also helping out with your education. The hope is that you guys will come back and give back to the community. But um, I mean, my grandfather was a congressman. He also served in Micronesia. He met my grandmother in Majuro as a customs or agriculture agent for the Trust Territory government. But I never thought I would. I thought I would be here, but I actually did a detour. I was working at the college for a long time. I never.
Kevin is on his way.
Yeah. Um, I what happened was I was in Oregon for a long left high school, left in middle school. So at eighth grade, I already decided that I given all the challenges, like college was my way out. And for education is if you look at all the developing countries right after World War II, those that really invested in education and in educating their people ended up on top. Countries like Korea, countries like Singapore, they weren't doing too well like right after World War II. But look at them now. Like Korea has really good economy. Um, so whatever you decide, um, you have to want it. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You just have to be committed towards that goal. Um, and just know that there's people along the way that are willing to help you out. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative Vicente Camacho.
Let me attempt. I'm a great grandfather, by the way. And if you know Justin, Justin is one of my Taekwondo instructors, and he's only 19 years old. So he's already doing well for himself. That doesn't mean that that's what he's going to do for life. So, what kind of advice do I give you, young kids? I am raising a son who is 16 years old now, and he's putting me through hell. But that's okay. That's part of growing up, right? Some of us are very obedient. Some of us don't want to be obedient, but there are rules. Do what you wish. Don't get stuck. Okay? Don't get stuck. You may want this now, but later on down the line, you might find something you want to do. I joined the Army at 22 years old. I spent 28 years in the military, got my education there, did what I had to do, and I had the freedom to choose. So, with that, I gave my children that option. I supported them for everything that they need, but I never once asked them to be doctors, to be lawyers. I just said, finish high school first. That's it. So, turns out I've never said this publicly, but I will now since I'm looking at these kids. 2 valedictorians came out of my household. just by allowing them to do what they want to do. Now, I did not tell them anything. Graduate high school, then opportunities will come to you. But you must want it. It's out there for you. Simply put, I did not know what I wanted to become until I got tired of, hanging out with the boys and the girls. And I said, wow, I would like a car. I like to be independent. So I took it upon myself, found my way. And it's not limited to boys or girls. Everybody has the same abilities. You just got to apply yourself. I'm sure these guys have stories, but I think I'm the oldest one in this crowd. Right? That's great. It's great. It's great to be older. So with that, find yourself, believe in yourself, and do what you think your passion is. That's it. Just be you. Find you. Think about you. You first, and then the rest of them. You can't help others if you cannot help yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good message. But if you decide to run for office and you get elected, don't think about yourself first. Okay. Senate President.
Yeah, let me share a story from my side. I grew up in a home raised by my grandma. And growing up, I actually wanted to become a stewardess. And then she said, no, because you're going to be in the air. And I figured, okay, let me just push it further. I wanted to become a pilot. She goes, no, you're still in the air. So I said, okay, I guess she wants me on land. Um, and you asked for an advice, and of course, a lot of us have a calling in life as we go through, growing up and getting educated and going through the experiences of life. Some of us also come from a family that have been involved in politics, have helped the people. I myself, I come from a background of my mother's brother is the first Senate president and also a former governor of the Commonwealth. And so you grow up looking at those as your model, right, in the family, and you wonder. I know when I was growing up, I always wonder like, why is it so important to work for the people, and why is it so important to serve the people? And so, a few years back, I've had some instances where people will come to me and talk about unfairness. For example, employment opportunities, right? And I'm sure you guys probably go through that experience in your own island where people would say, well, I guess if you're politically connected, if you have the right last name, right? Or that you are going with the majority of the group, then you're in it, in the circle. So you get to have the opportunity always. And whereas the majority of the crowd or the population will probably and likely do not have the same opportunity. And so that struck me, coming in from my background as a former Secretary of Labor, making sure that there's honesty and integrity and equal opportunity for all, right? Based on your education, based on your credentials, based on your ability to perform in the job. And so I figured it's time to get in and be part of the system, to be part of that change, to make sure that others are also given the opportunity so that they can have, for their families, be able to grow and have that source of income also to have a better standard of living, right? We talked about inflation earlier. And so it becomes difficult for families that do not have the edge for employment opportunities to have a better life. And where we're leading into this conversation is if you ever decide for the future to serve your people, have the principle that you don't go in there to serve yourself, to just benefit your families and your friends, that you're actually working for the betterment of the people and your island. So that's the advice I like to give you.
Thank you, Madam President. And before we move forward, I also like to recognize the presence of the floor leader of the Senate, Senator Karina Magofnia. Yeah. So I hope that answers your questions. Just continue to work hard. And even when you're in the seat, we have some some folks that have run for office to try to fix certain things. So, say for example, you want to become a doctor, you might want to run for office to try to fix the overall healthcare situation in your country. So, things like that. Okay, so do we have any other questions? This way, this side, come on. Do I pick? All right. Here, sir, you have a question? Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yuji, and I'm from the island of Bombay. And I want to know what is your biggest concern in the government today?
Thank you. Thank you. Well, the biggest concern right now, and like I mentioned earlier, we are working on the budget. So that's the biggest concern right now. Because we are required to have a budget in place, signed by the governor into law by the end of by August 1st, I mean October 1st of this year. Because once I'm sure you guys heard of the Cinderella story, right? Because once 12 o'clock hits on October 1st, 12 a.m., part of the government shuts down. And when that happens, that means people are not going to get paid. That means less consumer confidence, and that means less services to the public too. So that's the number one concern right now. And tied to that is also trying to get our economy going, because a strong economy means people are working. A strong economy means people are more confident in spending. And a strong economy also means more public service. Okay. And more opportunities to expand education, and more opportunities for those that want to come back and give back to their country. So those are my main concerns for now. Of course, there are other issues in the community that we would also like to tackle, and we are working on those. And one of the main things, like especially concerning young individuals in your age range, is vaping. You guys heard of vaping, right? In schools, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. And so we have is it Rep Julie Ogle, right? She's still working on a bill to really regulate vaping. I mean, yes, right now we have it's almost treated just like the tobacco. You have to be 21 and up, but there's no stopping your parents, right, or your older cousins that are over 21 going and buying for themselves only to give it to you who's underage. So that's just an example. Thank you. That's a very good question. Colleagues, any one of you want to add? We're good? Okay. Ma'am,
Good afternoon, everyone.
good afternoon.
My name is Kayla Yamata, and I'm from Pohnpei.
Pohnpei.
And I can confidently say that I'm sitting before very great leaders and young and intelligent individuals who I believe will be great leaders for our future generation. But what do you think the importance of having proper representation of where we come from, or who we are, or what issues we face in our community? And what is the importance of understanding like why we should have proper representation in our communities?
Okay. Let me try. I'm trying to understand that question. To have proper representation of,
Yeah.
you're talking about the youth, or?
The youth, yes.
Oh, the youth, yes. So here in the legislature, we have what we call the Youth Congress. It used to be a lot bigger than it is right now, but it looks like it's starting to grow. We went from 4 or 5 members to now we have like what, 7 or 9, somewhere there. It even gotten down to, I think, 3 at one point. But yeah, these young leaders are elected based on their schools, and so they have their own meetings as well. So they discuss their issues. They pass their own legislation, which also works as a communication up to our level. And then we consider that legislation and get the process going for it to be signed into law. So we have that here in the CNMI Youth Congress. So it's not just Saipan, but also Tinian and Rhoda as well. We're looking at ways. I know our coordinator is also looking into ways to bringing it back to what it used to be. I mean, we have had some members that have served here who were products of the Youth Congress back in the day. Yes, Representative Beneventi, go ahead.
Can I share some thoughts? Earlier, I'll just take what Representative Ben Camacho has mentioned earlier. That first of all, I like to congratulate all these students that are here today who exemplify themselves as far as being a student and being an ambassador coming from your individual island of Micronesia. Yeah, I'm very proud of that because I'm not new to Micronesia myself. I've been in Micronesia, like what the Senate President said. I almost become a pilot, but I didn't become a pilot. I become a worker for Continental Airlines, Continental Air Micronesia, way back, and I used to travel. I go to all the different parts of Micronesia. I've been there, and I know how the reality of life over there. So I just like to share this with you. For you that are here, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay whenever as you are growing up, because I myself also have grandkids, like young adults like you guys. And it's okay to make mistakes, but learn from your mistakes and correct the mistakes as much as possible. Move on. Build your characters. As you build it forward, you're going to accelerate yourself to whatever vision you have and the challenges you have ahead. So with that said, I just like to, again, I don't want to speak more because there's a lot of things that already been said, but just keep that in your thoughts that making the right decision and setting the right direction is the positive note, and pursuing a higher education is the solution for economic growth. Thank you very much, and welcome again to Saipan. You are already an ambassador here from your islands. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Beneventi. And just to add to that, too, in terms of your question, like what we do, we also represent the youth. And as you know, I'm sure the way it is also in your island countries, that we are a melting pot of different backgrounds, young, old. We all come from different countries. I mean, we have people in our community that are from different countries as well, and maybe some that are not direct descendants of the natives of the land, but they grew up, in on our islands, and that's the only place they know as home. So we represent all walks of life too. I hope that answers your question, ma'am. Thank you. Any more? Yes. Yes, Representative.
Just thank you for that question. That's a very good question, and we're fortunate that we have like the Youth Congress, for example, right? We also have the legislative body. We do represent everybody, and a lot of the times that people forget is that the biggest representation of that this body does, both the House and the Senate, are the voiceless ones, which are the students that can't go out there and vote for who they want to vote for. So we have to be able to speak for the voiceless ones at the same time. So we make sure that 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 individuals will be able to see something down the road that's going to be beneficial to them and those after them. The Sinamai, just like all the other island nations, are babies compared to the United States, for example, right? So one of the things that we have as a body of Micronesia, that it's very inclusive of Polynesia, is APIL. It's called the Association of Pacific Island Legislatures. So a lot of the concerns as children of the United States are we get together and present our challenges for each respective island nation to APIL. So that's a bigger body and a bigger voice to send out to the United States the positions of our all of our islands in Micronesia. So that's another avenue that we have, and we can take that from their kindergarten or to your toddler that's just learning how to walk all the way to the eldest person in each island nation's concerned, so that we can present it to the United States to get more assistance our way for all the island nations. And I think all the island nations, especially in Micronesia, are very active with the Association of Pacific Island Legislators. And I think it's important that maybe something to consider for the JSA program is to participate with the next gathering of APIL. I think that would be very important because you represent the voiceless ones right now, and they can take those concerns and bring them up to the even a higher level than just our respective states and territories. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Ato. Representative Manglonia.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is TJ Maglonia. I'm representing Precinct 5, and I think I'm the youngest one in the legislature, to my knowledge. So you brought up the youth, and that's something that I can definitely resonate with. I think if there's one thing that I learned, and you also mentioned the question about becoming future leaders. I know with every new generation comes innovation, right? Comes new ideas. I myself, I growing up, I always felt like I had innovative ideas that I could bring to the table. But if there's one thing that I've learned coming up and being able to sit on the seat is also what we were taught growing up was respect for our elders, respect for those that came before us. We may have ideas that we feel are going to change the world, but I think we also have to remember those that came before us and those that laid down the foundation for us to be able to have this voice and to be able to be in this position of leadership. So if there's one thing that I think helped me along my journey to come to this seat is always respecting those that came before me, and also having an open mind. Not always feeling like my ideas are the best. You're never going to agree down the line 100% with everybody. Everybody has different opinions. Everybody's their own individual person. But learning how to respect the opinions of those who came before you, and also the people that are next to you, is going to help you, ascend, I guess, along the way. And that's really what becoming a true leader is, and being a representation of your community and the youth is being able to take in everybody's opinions and everybody's input, and finding a common ground and a common solution. And that's the whole purpose of having the legislature and the way that our branches of government are set up. It's bringing everybody to the table, having representation of all different parts of, for our case, the CNMI, and coming to an agreement that we feel is best for the people. So if this is something that you're looking into, being a public leader, don't be discouraged. And I think the number one thing is follow your passion. I didn't think I'd be here at 31. Normally, growing up within the legislature, it's always been, older, it's older folks that are within the legislature. It's not a whole lot of younger folks as far as when I was growing up, right? And I didn't know how I was going to get here. It's always been a dream of mine. But I think if you follow your passion, you make those choices, like the other members said, that it'll choose you. It'll find a way to choose you. Your calling, and that's what happened to me. It just chose me. The people, the situations, the circumstances chose me. And even though I wasn't 100%, ready at that moment, it's always a jump. It's always a risk to put your name out there and run for public office. And it's you're dependent on the people's votes. It's not anything that's guaranteed. And you put your heart and soul into wanting to be in this position, and it's not guaranteed for everybody. But if your heart's in the right place and your passion is for our people, your people, and the people that you represent, the people will sense that, and they'll give you that opportunity, and it'll come to you. So I just wanted to give my 2 cents. And our offices are open, even though we're across, waters. I always tell this to everybody that comes through, especially our youth. We're here to also give you guidance on our end, and if there's anything that you need from our offices, please don't hesitate to reach out. Don't It doesn't have to be limited to this meeting. So I thank you again, and you guys are already in the right position where you're at right now. Like Congressman Atal said, you're representing your islands. You're away from home, and you're in this position already. So you're already in the right place. If position of leadership is your goal or your dream. So thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your stay. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Manglonia. And also to add, one of the advantages of coming from a small community, a small island, is the accessibility you have to talk to your leaders. I've had friends that have moved here to take jobs here, or they got married to folks that are from here and they move here. And one of the things they say is like, man, this is amazing that I can talk to my congressman like this, because some just vote for representatives back in their home state that they just see on TV, but never really had the opportunity to come and meet like this. So I applaud you, and you should take advantage of that kind of accessibility that you have to talk to your leaders. Okay, more questions? Yes, ma'am.
There are a lot of terms to describe the Pacific Islanders, and one umbrella that I just learned is called AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander. So many of the islanders think that they're underrepresented, and they think that they're not involved when it
Mhm.
comes to global meetings.
Mhm.
So what do you think about this?
The AAPI, I'm not too familiar with it. Go ahead.
If I may, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate that question. The AAPI, I think I think I kind of heard it. Rep. Atel mentioned it. It is a census designation, Asian American and Pacific Islander. Um, it is starting to become more of a sort of a political term. In the same sense, I think just kind of locally, like an NMD, like Northern Marianas Descent, but in the national global realm, Mr. Speaker, it's Asian American Pacific Islander, and then they even disaggregated further to say Asian American Pacific Islander, Native Hawaiian, and then the pushback from the territories is to include additional and disaggregate Pacific Islanders to mention Chamorros and Micronesians. It's a little bit of a build up of from the conversation we had with Governor Palacios yesterday about the representation of Micronesians and Pacific Islanders on the global scale. And I think one student had a very, very good question, and Governor Palacios had a very interesting insight on this perspective because it was talking about how Micronesians and Pacific Islanders are perceived on the global scale in terms of both our political representation on the global table and our relationship with the United States. And I think because these students come from COFA jurisdictions, there is a lot of it resonates well with how they see themselves growing up in this global age.
Go ahead, Representative Atal.
That's a really really good question. Prior to the CNMI becoming the CNMI, we're a member of the United Nations. I think the only member that's left in the United Nations from our region is Palau, right? So earlier I was talking about the APIL, right? That's something that we can bring up. I know that we've been pushing from the CNMI side to include the Rafaloash designation when it comes to the census, and that in itself is taking a while just to get the I think it was Chamorro, to include Chamorro in the census was took like 35 years. to get it designated in the census. But this is something that's I think it's important for your, especially your generation. I don't know about your respective islands. Is your native tongue being lost already? Is a native tongue? Most of the students, you guys speak your native tongue.
You guys speak your
You guys
language.
speak your native tongue.
All right, that's good.
That's a good thing. So the cinema at one point was really far ahead in this region compared to Guam in regards to native tongues. Right now, we're losing it. So I think this concern is very important to bring up to even to that scale at APIL using your representatives from your respective island nations. I think our speaker right now is the vice president of APIL speaker. So he's the vice president of APIL. So maybe he can take the lead on behalf of our people within this region to present a resolution to APIL so that we can have a stronger voice and a stronger presence on the world stage. And we can also request the people of Palau through their representative to the United Nations to make sure that we are recognized. Again, this is very difficult. Guam by themselves, they're an organic act, and it's been almost 50 years. The Hope Cristobal, right?
Yeah.
Hope Cristobal for almost over 50 years has been trying to get membership on the United Nations. Her daughter has taken over her goal right now, and they've show up to all these United Nations meetings until this day. They've never given them the time of day. Our advantage is we have Palau in there sitting right now, and they're a member of APIL, and we can use that avenue to get ourselves to that global stage. We also have a delegate in DC that we can also use, but it's APIO is such a bigger body, and it's a voice. It has a voice. Hawaii is represented in APIO, and they have voting members in U.S. Congress, so we can use that avenue to get that. And we're picking on the speaker right now because he's a vice president. So please let's share our concerns to him as well, so he can present them. And Representative Yang Tamai is also a member of APIL, so I think it's important we can use that avenue. That's a very good concern, and I'm glad that you brought it up because we're losing our tongue. We want to make sure that the tongue carries forward. No, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, and that's a very good concern. Ma'am, do you have questions?
Hello, my name is Karishma Paul. I'm from Bombay. I go to Our Lady of Mercy Catholic High School. Based on your experience, what is the toughest and easiest part of this job?
Thank you. A couple things. You know, when you're in this job, you know, you represent the people, and you try your best to serve all of them. You know, to take care of all their needs or their requests and whatnot. And the frustrating part is that that's never going to happen. You know, and and it's going to be the case with everything, right? Even on your personal level, you're going to have friends that are not going to be happy for certain things you do or you try to do, and you come up short. So that's one frustrating part of the job, but it's also something that you should not drive yourself to do because it's very impossible. We have acted on legislation that has been very controversial, but we felt is very beneficial for the people, even though they could not see it. And then, of course, we have also acted on popular legislation where everybody is in agreement with that. So that's the easiest part. And then the hard part too, again, I always bring up the budget because in my first term back in 2010, we experienced our first government shutdown because there was no compromise, there was no agreement between the executive branch and then both chambers of the legislature. So just like the Cinderella story, 12 o'clock hit on October 1st, and there was no budget. And the time just kept, you know, Father Time is not going to stop. It's going to keep going. And the longer the time goes, again, like I mentioned, that's time of people not getting paid. Services are going to be limited and things like that. So that's always something, especially around this time of the year, that is somewhat stressful, and also because our economy is still starting to grow. Um, that means we still have limited revenue, and we have department and agencies and services that we would like to give to the people to its full potential. But again, that's where the difficulty is trying to share that piece of the pie with everybody. So yeah, that's those are the difficult and the easiest parts of the job too. So, colleagues, you guys want to add anything? That's pretty much on point, right? I hope that answers your question. How about over here, sir? You have any question? Okay. I like how I say I'm gonna pick, and when I point, they raise their hands. Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Ryu Noel Nakasone.
Mhm.
I am an upcoming junior at Xavier High School, and I am from Bombay. I know there are many issues in Micronesia, but I want to talk about climate change in particular.
Mm.
Climate change has affected us all, such as the super typhoon that hit Guam recently and the sea level rising in RMI. And I just want to ask what steps are being taken to help in the battle against climate change.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good question. Very good question. Um, I'm not a expert in the environment, but here, at least here in the CNMI, I mean, we're trying to, at least on our end, try to be a little more or less dependent on fossil fuels, because that's one of the contributors. So I think maybe there's only a handful of electric vehicles here in the CNMI, but um, that thing is, I know it's slowly growing. We are looking at renewable energy alternatives other than diesel, but that's still going to take a while. It's an effort that everybody has to buy into, um, and all aspects of government are going to have to work together on it. No, I mean, I know it's going to be hard because we're still dependent on that, and then at the same time, just the natural occurrences that happen in the world, that also plays a part in this whole global warming. I mean, warning, but it's also a warning too, right? Um, I wasn't alive then, but I'm sure you guys have heard of the Ice Age, right? Not the movie, but the real thing, right? But see, all that ice melted, but there were no sports cars, there were no airplanes, there were no, you know, cars and trains and all that stuff. So, at least on our end, as people with the technology we have today, we're trying to be a little less dependent on fossil fuel, try to use a cleaner, cleaner energy to do our part to try to minimize global warming and all that. But it's going to be really hard to also control the natural occurrences. But we're trying. Representative Manny.
Um, I think another important aspect is really looking at the data. Whenever legislation is passed, whether it's local legislation, national, or global, things happening in the world perspective. Uh, because for example, some states they'll ban straws, right? Because it's polluting the oceans. Yet data would probably reveal that the biggest pollutant in our waters is not straws. It's nets from long line, like commercial fishing. And straws probably is like less than 10% of that waste. So, just balancing the legislation and really looking at the real contributing factors of environmental impacts rather than the political aspects. So, looking at the data and the evidence and making sure it matches up rather than popularity. Because sometimes, even with that, it becomes detrimental.
Thank you, Representative Manny. I hope that answers your questions. Um, Sir, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Oh, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yu Nakasone. I'm an upcoming junior at Xavier High School.
Wow.
And I'm from the island of Pohnpei. Earlier this morning, we were taught by Thomas, or as we would like to call him, Mr. T.
Hey, Mr. T. Yeah.
We were split into groups and talked about certain issues. Our group, we talked about discrimination. So I just want to ask, how big of a role does discrimination play here in the island?
Oh, that's a. You want to add? Okay, Representative Manny.
I think the benefit of the CNMI is it not to say that it doesn't happen as it doesn't happen, because I'm sure every community experiences some form, but it's pretty much I believe the CNMI is a bit more inclusive just based on our history, um, being the capital of Micronesia during the Trust Territory era. So there's a lot of and even before that, historically, there's always been a community between our areas. But another benefit of being a part of the American family is there's a lot of protections in place because of what's happened in the mainland over the years. So we continue to prevent things like that. It does happen, especially um, when there's a lot of foreign investment. Sometimes that happens where even though we're supposed to hire local or hire US citizens, but there's more preferential treatment to foreign workers. But pretty much most of the laws that come in are designed to make sure that um, residents are gainfully employed as much as possible before we import in labor, because that's the ultimate benefit. So that's just one aspect. We're talking about workforce, but a lot of discrimination happens within in those environments as well. But there's laws, and there's also historical, cultural, historical traditions that kind of prevent discrimination.
Thank you, Representative Manny. I hope that answers your question, sir. Anybody else? Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, and I also just wanted to clarify that not just because I'm the chairman of education, but education also has a lot to also helps in preventing discrimination. The more aware people are, the more they know about their history and a lot of the connections that we have with each other, um, the better decisions that they'll make.
Thank you, Representative Manny. Sir?
Good afternoon. My name is Jeremiah Paloy Suyol. I am Yappies, and I am a upcoming senior at Xavier High School in Chuk. So my question, it somewhat branches also off of the environment. I would like to hear about your opinion on if the use of Micronesian or Pacific exports, such as like the fishing industry, the use of coconut industry, if it can really help our economy or not.
I think it can. I believe so. Um, I know it can be difficult because at least here in the CNMI, like fishing, right? You mentioned fishing. Um, I just think everyone just needs to again come together and and really decide that this is really what they want to do on a local level before we can start exporting. Okay, one of the difficulties we find is, um, it's going to be hard if you cannot even supply the businesses on island. Okay, for example, I remember back then just doing research, and as much as the hotels back then when the tourism economy was, I mean, industry was really booming, as much as they want to help local farmers or local fishermen, they just cannot meet the demand. So they choose to import instead because at least that's more of a guarantee. So I believe it can help our economy. There just has to be really solid organization in terms of how to carry that industry out from our own local farmers and fishermen. So I'm pretty sure it's the same too in the other islands. Go ahead, sir.
But will there be any risks of our resources eventually running out?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Um, Again, that's why I mentioned there has to be some kind of solid organization and coordination to do this here in the CNMI as well. And I'm pretty sure Palau is also a really good example with how they protect their environment. Here in the CNMI too, in the Northern Islands, we have a couple islands that are considered sanctuaries. Um, you can only go there and just check it out. Touching anything there, and you'll be in serious trouble. Um, we also have the Marianas Trench Monument, which is the northernmost three islands in our chain. That's also protected, allowed for fishing, but again, it's also like a protected area, and even around Saipan as well. So again, it's an industry to look into, but like I said, there really has to be a really good coordination. Maybe take a look at the laws and see what works and see what doesn't work, and move forward with that. Definitely, we don't want to deplete our resources. That's why we have some laws in place and seasons in place for certain animals. You know, coconut crab is an example. Even the deers in Rhoda, there are certain times that you can only catch those things. Yes, Representative Atto. Oh, okay, Representative Camacho.
Yeah, I just want to throw something in. Before we broke off the trust territory government, there was what's called the copra industry. That kind of just phased out. But anyway, I think it may be because Thailand and the Philippines has more of the resources than we do, even put together. But if that did happen back then, what's stopping us from looking back into that? So I just kind of thought I'd throw that in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That's a very good question that you brought up, but I really like your follow-up question though, because it ties back into global warming, right? We in this day and age, everybody uses a cell phone, right? Your generation, you guys make money off cell phones. You can run your own business off cell phones. Our generation, we're using it just to call and text. Making money is a difficult task for us, but you take Pohnpei as a classic example. They were one of the biggest distributors of tuna. So all the tuna runs from the northern islands down the stream. They end up in Pohnpei. So a lot of the longliners end up in Pohnpei. The airlines that were bringing those tuna to Japan was Tan Holdings. Have you ever heard of Tan Holdings Corporation? So they're one of the biggest companies here on this in the CNMI, but they service the all of Micronesia. So they used to bring the tuna down to Japan, and so in the Chinese market, when you have like the big bluefin tunas, they run in for like what $100,000 for one fish, right? So Pohnpei was actually in this market, and they were getting that through exportation, but it contradicts the idea of our natural resources as well, right? That's why your follow-up question is very important. Now, how do you balance that? We're being taught in life to improve yourself economically. Is That's how success is based. Your educational experience and your work experience is going to get you financially secured. But when you get to a financially secured situation as an island nation, you're dependent from everything outside, right? And that's what makes our lives as islanders very difficult, because external decisions really affects our ability to be self-sustaining. For the cinema, for example, we had control of our immigration for 30 plus years, and in one vote and one stroke of a pen, they took that away from us. They took away millions of dollars of economic activity for the cinema with one stroke of a pen. And at the same time, they pinned us to make sure that our population can fill the workforce when we know for a fact that the population can never fill the workforce. They know that, but they're making decisions from 8,000 miles away. That's what affects us as Pacific Islanders. That's why we need to work together to be able to be heard away from home, because if we don't, we're going to slowly lose everything else. The only thing that's kept us together over all these years is our culture, the ability to be continually respect individuals, and the language. Our language is almost gone. The next generation is losing that language. But remember that prior to that, over 500 years, they were able to sustain our language even to three world powers, and the fourth one being the United States. So if we don't try to balance that, and a true education and a basis of how successful you are financially, then it's gonna be tough, and it's gonna be you guys' job. It's our job right now to provide for you guys. But if we're giving you guys something that's not workable, well, it's not fair to your generation, right? So we need to work together, bridge that gap between generations so that we can be one body rather than be separated by generations. No, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Atto. Representative Manny.
Yeah, if you could repeat the question once more. I promise I'll have a good answer.
What are you trying to say? What are you trying to say?
So, so I said I would like to hear your opinion on if the use of Micronesian or Pacific resources on the islands can really help our economy or not.
Okay. Once upon a time, there was this company called UMDA, United Micronesia Development Association. I'm sure your grandparents will know about that, or your parents. But it used to be one of the biggest companies in Micronesia, which owned the airline known as Air Mic, Continental Air Micronesia. They owned the corporate industry. They were involved in that. The biggest challenge we have in the Pacific is we have limited natural resources. So when you export coconuts, let's say you export it to Japan, what is gonna come back? You know, or there's so many players out there in the market where labor is more affordable. So supply and demand, competition, it all comes into play. But when we're talking about a balance, for example, the Republic of Palau is like the model marine conservation area for the world. At the same time, there's a lot of oil in Palau, in the near Kayang, somewhere around there. So you have to balance between conservation, but at the same time, if Palau was able to tap into that oil and have an oil rig, Palauans will be the Dubai of the Pacific. So you have to balance, like the whole world is asking a small island to really conserve, but is the whole world conserving on its side at the same level? Meanwhile, while the smaller islands are conserving, the bigger countries like China, they continue to. So just like bottom line in terms of business, you can use resources like that to an advantage. Let's say there was an oil rig, and you got a lot of Palauans employed, educated, and we're exporting that oil, and then later on diversify into another industry and go from oil to geothermal to hydrogen, converting bad energy, like not really good for the environment, into better energy. Um, One of the main advantages that countries in Micronesia have is you still have your sovereignty. So you still have a seat at the table at the UN. You still have the ability to negotiate world trade. So there's a reason why, like, the CNMI was the first to become a commonwealth in political union with the United States. The rest of Micronesia under the trust territory government slowly chose their own destiny. Palau, for example, was the last, either FSM and Marshall somewhere in between. But the benefit of freely associated states is you have the best of both worlds politically. You can get help from Uncle Sam at the same time you can get help from the UN. So that's one economic advantage that I think we should also teach. And the other thing is, given that we have limited natural resources other than the ocean, and for those islands that have oil underneath, if you don't start tapping into that, there's bigger countries that are going to start drilling from the other side and taking your oil away from you. Same thing with fishing. So going back to like UMDA, the advantage of United Micronesia Development Association, it was a coalition of all the islands. So instead of decisions being made from Houston when we're talking about like airlines, right? Because a lot of our islands, our tourism is based on tourism, but yet the planes that bring in the tourists are not really controlled by our governments. They're controlled by companies outside of our islands. But the main advantage of UMDA back then is, if we need to send more of our people to, let's say, Taiwan for medical referral, or Philippines, it's a phone call away. You can call, whoever, station manager, and say, hey, we need additional planes. So a lot of, given the limited resources, we have to look at what we do have and maximize that. So we have a lot of people. That's human capital is a business's number one asset. Your people. The people are the ones that make the business great. So with technology nowadays, you can do remote work, you can have a call center. There's a lot of different industries that our smaller island, the Commonwealth or the island nations can look into. But again, Micronesia has a lot of advantages given its political relationship, not only with the UN but also with the United States. So key thing as future leaders is to maximize that. So balance conservation, but at the end of the day, what is conservation for? Is to conserve it for your people, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Manny. Or Representative Aldan, did you want to add?
Yes, thank you. So, um, Representative Manny is correct, especially with regards to conservation, because remember that we are all small island nations, correct? And let's say, for example, you're talking about the copra. How many coconut trees do you think we need to plant in order to provide the world what it needs? So our land mass is very, very limited. If we compare it to Thailand, or Indonesia or Philippines, we could fit in those nations 1,000 times over. They have the land, we don't have the land. So we got to be very careful on how we are thinking of creating a product that we can export. We could export, yes, we could, but we are going to be limited because our land is limited, right? When it comes to fishing, there's a place when I was in the Navy that I visited. It's called East Timor. Okay, it gained its independence from Indonesia, right? Um, when I went to that place, as not a, I was in the military, so we represent the United States, government. There's a portion in East Timor that, used to be abundant with marine life. I was doing, because we had to do economic research on that, right? Because we're trying to help the country. In less than 50 years, that ocean or that beach area was teeming with life. And in less than 50 years, it was gone. No fish, no coral, nothing. They overfished it, and all of that. And when you go swimming in that beach, there's just nothing. It's just sand. It's like a desert. There's no life, no nothing. Maybe you see a little fish swimming by, every now and then, but it wasn't like the way it was 50 years ago. So, as a small island nation, where we do want to grow our economy and we do want to export products, and provide services to the world, we must be very careful and be very conservative on the little land and the little oceans that we have. Okay, we could all cooperate together as island nation, and we could all chip in, and share our resources, and that way we do not deplete, our own resources. And that's a bigger picture. So if it was, if I was given a bill today to to follow through agricultural, I will support it in one condition: is if all of us island nation agree with it, because I do not want to overfish our area. But if we spread it out, we could live it a longer life, which where you guys will inherit. But we all need to cooperate together. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Aldan. Any other questions? Right here, ma'am. Do you have a question?
Hello, my name is Nia Wase and I'm from the RMI. And as an islander, I realized that we all receive discrimination. And I just wanted to know if you guys have ever experienced it or seen it firsthand and how it made you feel.
I've never really, I guess, because maybe when they look at me, they will not believe that I'm a Pacific Islander, right? Right? Yeah. I mean, even being from Saipan, I still get people like, like, no, I am of Rafalawashi descent, whatever. So, but yeah, Rapata, yeah.
I think in our home, no, and in all the other island nations, I've never felt discriminated. But I was 9 years old when I left the Sinamai. I ended up in Boise, Idaho, and in Boise, Idaho, that time you can count how many colored people were actually in the whole state of Idaho. So there's some sort of discrimination that I felt, possibly more so over there. But it was also motivation, right? We come from a small place, and there's gonna be sense of discrimination because of they don't understand who you are. Maybe it's not really discrimination, but they just didn't understand who I was. They didn't know who I was. They wanted to learn. So the questions that they would ask are almost discriminatory questions. And a lot of the stuff that I would say, right? Oh yeah, you guys still live in huts, and you guys don't have cars. So yeah, so of course I'm gonna. They don't know. I can lie to them, right? So
Called ignorance.
so I did that, but it was a lot. It's a lot of motivation because it gives you that strength to work harder, be more competitive, because you want to make sure that the people that are going to be coming after you will be treated differently. So I think if there's some sort of discrimination, possibly, but I think it's unintentional discrimination. It's just that they didn't understand. But again, it's motivation. And I think you take that as motivation and you become a better individual, because you may have siblings or cousins or nieces and nephews that are going to be coming after you that might end up in the same situation. And you would hope that the work that you put in during your time is going to help them succeed easier than what you're going to go through. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Atta. Representative Manny.
So, growing up in Saipan, for the most part, I would say I didn't know about discrimination or racism. Like when I would watch TV and watch all the shows, I didn't see African American person. I didn't see a Caucasian person, Islander. I saw a person. It wasn't till after the 8th grade when I moved to Oregon. For the most part, didn't experience racism or discrimination in Oregon when I was there. I went to high school there, went to college, went to graduate school. Do you know Neri Wase? Yone Wase? Okay, we went to school together.
Rep
Is
Manny
your
might be your uncle too. I don't know.
is Carol your grandma? Oh, okay. So yeah. So um yeah, so I'm sure they experienced the same thing, but the key thing, like I remember my cousins because I moved to Oregon first. Like my grandfather, his name's Manny, also Manny Tenorio. He bought a house in Oregon in the '90s. So that house, like a lot of our family would come and transition until they found their own place. But I had cousins from the Marshalls that moved over, and when they moved over, one of my cousins experienced some form of racism, and what his mom would say to him at that time was just excuse the ignorance because they don't know better. Pray for them. But the way I took it, as I think I was, even though I was a business major, maybe I was born to be an educator because when I first got into high school, by the end of my senior year, the entire population knew about the CNMI and that we're a part of the United States. So um, usually in the States, only military people or historians, especially World War II veterans, those are the people, and divers. Those are the people that really know the Northern Marianas and who we are, and we're a part of the United States. But other than that, majority of people don't even know we exist. So it was a challenge for me to educate those that didn't know, and we can't blame people that I mean, I think it's most people would say like a lot of my classmates and everything in Oregon, they didn't travel much, so we can't blame them for that. And but for the most part, the state of Oregon is um, uh, you know, despite that one incident on the highway, it was I think it was like Powell Boulevard. And like there's a driver that I think it was road rage, and they were like, go back to Mexico. And I was like, I told him straight. I was like, I'm from the Northern Mariana Islands. We are part of the United States. Know your history. And I felt really proud to like educate someone that needed some education. So don't use it as a one, use people's ignorance as an opportunity to help them be better people. That's all. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep Manny. Senator Karina.
Thank you, Speaker, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Karina McGoffin, and I'm a senator here representing the island of Saipan. So it's important to note that there are different types, different forms of discrimination, right? We have race discrimination, we have gender discrimination, we have religion discrimination. So from what it sounds like in the discussion right now, it sounds like we're focusing more on ethnicity, right, like the race. But it's important to note that there are other types of discrimination, and the reality is there's going to be discrimination wherever you go, even within your own islands. And I can speak to that, right? Like I was born and raised here on the island of Saipan, but moved to Washington State at a very young age. And like Reb BJ Atto said, a lot of the times it's really ignorance, and they have no uh, ill intention to make you feel discriminated in any way. But nevertheless, at that age, you feel discriminated. They would ask questions such as, oh my gosh, do you guys still live in huts? Do you guys drive cars? What kind of money, what kind of currency do you guys use? And coming from a tiny, tiny island, you would feel discriminated. But as time goes, and like Rep Manny says, those are opportunities to take to educate them, because uh, they just don't know any better. And like them, we are same age, right? So um, it's important to remind yourself that not all the time they do it intentionally. um, as you get older, like as I got older and I moved around to different states, I lived in Michigan for a period of time. And I lived in the capital of Michigan, which is Lansing. And I could see the distinct discrimination between, like literally there's a borderline where this side of the city was predominantly African American, and then on the other side, like East Lansing, was predominantly white. And you can just see the different way people treat each other, the way they look at you. Like I would go into a restaurant, and and automatically they associate me as an Asian, right? An Asian, because probably I have slanted eyes. And it really depends which part of the town you are in, that you would experience discrimination. I can also say that when I moved back to Saipan, I actually felt very discriminated here. To Out of all the places that I felt discriminated, it was here on this island. And I think part of the reason is because I've been gone for so long, like not a lot of people knew who I was. And so when I came back, I probably looked a certain way of ethnicity. And one example that I can give to you guys is when I went up to Department of Public Lands to follow up on an application that I had submitted over 20 years ago to apply for homestead. I was discriminated because they thought I was Filipino. And for the life of me, they were literally talking, not saying nice things behind my back, not knowing that I actually understood the language. And so, you know, um, just keep in mind that no matter where you go, there is going to be discrimination, based on your color, based on the religion, based on your gender association. So the important takeaway from that is, for one, pray for them. And second of all, just, you know, ask yourself how you would like to respond to it, because you don't really have to respond to such treatment such as that. It's really how you respond to someone's comment about you, or the way they mistreat you. And if anything, always take that as a learning lesson, and take the opportunity to educate. So going back to Red Manny, always look for those opportunities to educate the ignorance of the world. So just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Corina. Representative Aldan, you had?
Your question about have you ever felt discriminated? Yes. Okay. And this would go back to this young gentleman that had the question on leadership. Okay. First and foremost, right, like everyone said, it's all ignorance. Okay. Um, you treat people the way you want to be treated. I'm pretty sure you heard of that. Correct? And with all the negative things that you're going to go through, you're going to see, you're going to be witness, and you're going to be a victim of it. Right? As long as you are not being physically, abused and all of that, you should be okay. But you have to get yourself to be mentally spiritually and emotionally strong, to beat them at their own game. You let them lose sleep thinking about, what kind of person you are and whatnot. And technically, you don't even have to entertain them, the ignorant comments and whatnot. You could educate them, but then it's up to them if they're going to absorb it or not and understand it, right? So treat people the way you want to be treated, right? Do not confuse your education with your knowledge, right? And always make sure that you're true to yourself, because you're all you every one of us, we are our own worst enemy. So as long as you're always true to yourself, make sure that your moral compass is always pointing in the right direction, you should be just fine. Because sometimes there's just going to be people out there in the world that are just not going to get it, you know. So do not waste your time, or your energy entertaining or even arguing with a fool. Because when you do, guess what that makes you? A fool, right? So we'll leave it at that. Okay.
Thank you, Rep. O'Don. Rep. Manny.
Yeah, just a disclaimer, as island people, we're pretty humble people. Um, so also be very strategic in where you decide to educate. If you're going to educate in Northeast Portland, best not to educate on the streets like that. Just pray for them. But in a educational, just look at your environment. It's like, okay, this person cannot be fixed. Like Rep Aldon mentioned. But yeah, just be very strategic in how you carry out what you need to carry out. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Camacho, Vicente.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaking of discrimination, I was absent from the island for 28 years. I was with the Department of Defense, 24 years in the Army. I'm a retiree. However, what I do understand about discrimination is, how do you fit in and are you appropriate? It's the same thing as walking to my front door, knocking the door like crazy. Who the hell are you? I would be pissed off too. So it's really about, where do you fit in? I never actually felt discriminated when I was gone. 28 years I was gone. What I did understand is, I need to learn about myself and the people and the environment around me. Where do I fit in? Yeah, I've heard some bad languages, but the good thing about this, I did not understand what they were saying. I was ignorant too, so that saved me. And with that, I did not play into it. I just kind of moved on, figured out, what did this person just say? I know he called me brown. I did not know I was brown skinned. I know I'm short. Yeah, I understood that. Yeah, I did not know I was short. Yeah, I'm there, I'm proud and doing everything I need to do to get ahead of everybody else. So that did not stop me. That did not stop me. Equipments were bigger than me. I had to figure a way to fit my equipment comfortably. Now, a paratrooper my whole career, and that was very difficult because you cannot adjust the parachute to fit me. So I had to find ways in order for it to fit. So, before I started questioning and feeling bad about being discriminated, I didn't know what. I figured, oh, well, it is true. My shoes are bigger than my feet. So what do? Find shoes that fit you, correct? But if you mind people's comments, that's when you start getting in trouble. And oh, by the way, when I was going through high school, the people that I went through high school with are people from all over Micronesia. Before, when high school was still in Saipan and Guam, were the only places where you could go to for high school. So a lot of my friends are actually from Micronesia. So I don't know about islanders being discriminating about each other, but I don't think so. Language barrier has a lot to do with it also. No? Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Did you?
I was just, I actually think I found something pretty new about Congressman Camacho. So, Congressman, you jumped off planes as a paratrooper? Wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that he was a paratrooper. That's amazing. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. We all knew that he was a veteran, but I didn't know that he was a paratrooper. That's pretty amazing. Mr. Speaker, if I may, I know we've been here for a while, and I just wanted to just mention that we want to be very respectful of you and the members' time. Just the fact that you spent about an hour and 50 minutes with these 10 exemplary students from Micronesia is a testament to your leadership and your collaboration as elected leaders. But at the same time, too, it's also this shared commitment to what you can feel in the room is this commitment to education and the commitment to the development of our overall region here. And I think some of the things that are being talked about in Thomas's class with the students, as well as the principles being taught by the JSA program, which has had a presence here in the region for decades, 3 decades, is it speaks to both the familiarity that everyone knows about the program, as well as the collective commitment that we all know as elected leaders that you all have. So, Mr. Speaker, and I just want to just we can stay here as long as you want. This is your chamber, and this is we're at your discretion. But at the same time, too, we want to be respectful of your time, and we also want to be able to get a photo op with the students and the members and any of the legislators in the building that are able to make it, so we can also press this as well.
All right. Are we good with that? I mean, I'm good for more questions. Are we good? Are we good? Okay. Well, then thank you very much for coming over and visiting us. Just know that the honor and privilege is all ours, and that you're welcome anytime. So yeah, with that, thank you very much, and please come again.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Speaker.